Let me ask a question. How many of you think Congress argues too much and gets little done? Most of the room? I think my wife even raised her hand on that. I want to tell you all, I got to stand near this tape here so the video cameras can catch us. I want to tell you all that I share that same frustration. I think a lot of Americans do. I can tell you as a freshman member of Congress, having been in Washington for 6 months, that too little gets done, and too many people argue, and too many people point fingers and blame each other. I want to do my part as a leader in this community, tonight at this town hall, and when I'm your voice on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, to speak on behalf of our constituents here, and to try to change the course and the civility of politics in this country. I think far too often we see a lot of arguing, a lot of bickering, and we see what we ended up with last Monday, a week ago Monday, a bill that I opposed because it didn't solve the long-term problems. And at least if they're going to argue over and over again in Washington, we've got to at least solve something at the end of the day. And so I want to tell you all that they say 80% of Americans are frustrated with Congress. I'm part of that 80% because I agree with you. Congress needs to reform its ways, and Congress needs to do a better job of listening to their constituents. And tonight is one of those opportunities for me to listen to you and to ask your questions. So I'm going to try to get time in for as many questions as possible tonight and as many comments. And what I hope is that we can have a very civil and intelligent dialogue. And I fully admit on the issues that are facing this country that our community is divided, our country is divided, and there are differences of opinions that are well thought out and that deserve respect. And so I want to hear your difference of opinions, and I want to have a good dialogue. I might learn something, you might learn something, you might learn something from each other. I think these are very healthy parts of the democratic process, and I'm pleased to do it. This is the 7th or 8th town hall meeting we've done now. As the mayor said, we're here in January. We've been in Overland Park, we've been in Bonner Springs, we've been in Lawrence, we've been in Wyandotte County, we've been in Mission, and we've been all over, and we're going to keep doing them because I believe it's an important form of democracy. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to be your congressman. I know in elections you're not going to get everyone's vote, and I know that some people would prefer that I'm not their congressman. Some people like the fact I'm their congressman. That's okay, because either way, I'm the voice for the entire community, Democrat, Independent, Republican, and so I'm going to do my job to listen and to have an opportunity to share with you what I think and hear your responses in response. One of the reasons Americans are so frustrated with Washington is we're frustrated with what's happening in this country, and Washington's not fixing it. We've seen the numbers in terms of debt. We've seen the numbers in terms of the economy. $14 trillion national debt. We borrow 42 cents out of every dollar. We borrow about $40,000 a second. So think every second we're sitting here in this town hall meeting, we're borrowing $40,000. And so whatever side of the spectrum you're on, we can't think that's a good way to run this government. And so we've got to work together to find solutions to put our country on a better fiscal track. We can't continue to borrow this amount of money from future generations. And I think both parties are on the same page on that. We're just on a couple different pages on how to actually get it done. The economy's continued to struggle. 9.1% unemployment. We have 14 million Americans looking for work. We have over 6 million Americans that have been out of work for 6 months or more. We probably have unemployed people in this audience that are looking for jobs. They're unemployed in our community. And in fact, after a time period, some of those folks actually fall off the unemployment rolls because they give up hope trying to find a job. And we all know somebody, and maybe even someone here, that's tried very, very hard to find a job and just can't find one. Sometimes there's 100 applicants for a position, and you're one of those applicants. It's kind of depressing to think that you're facing all those other people, and it's going to be very difficult. And so there's hopelessness out there, and Congress isn't helping. As you see, Congress, many folks feel they're never going to really get together and solve some of these problems. And so I understand those frustrations, and I understand those numbers. Now let me tell you a little bit about, as I said, we've done a lot of town halls, we've done teletown hall meetings. We're back right now as part of the August recess. We have had meetings this week. Today I was with a hospital group, some hospital administrators talking about healthcare issues. For lunch I was at the Fairfax Industrial Park area in Wyandotte County. This afternoon we did a forum over at Tallgrass Senior Center, talked about Medicare, Social Security, talked about those issues facing our country, and here tonight we're doing a town hall meeting. And so I feel very pleased we have a good turnout tonight, and I appreciate folks who are here. I want to introduce a few people that are here so we have everybody kind of knowing who's in the room here. First, and most important, I want to introduce my wife, Brooke, who's in the back of the room. And then I want to introduce my staff. And our job is not only to make sure that we get your concerns and that I properly understand where voters are in this district, constituents are, but that you have folks in the office who will listen, and if you call in, you've got someone to answer the phone and all those things. And so I'll introduce my staff so you're familiar with them and so they can help you with issues. Let me tell you the kind of things that we're dealing with beyond calls and emails, and keep those coming. They're very helpful to us to go through and talk about them. We've had now, since the beginning of January, we've had over 50,000 calls, emails, or letters. Think about that, over 50,000. We just crested over 50, I think it's 50,400 something. And so staff's working very hard, and I want you to be aware of who they are so you can visit with them. Travis Smith, Chief of Staff in the back of the room. Travis, you wave there. Travis is Chief of Staff. Molly Hayes, Molly's District Director. So she's here in Overland Park, or in the district. In the district office, for those who don't know where that is over on 79th Street. Just sort of downtown Overland Park area, right off about 79th and Metcalf. You know where Papakino's is, or some of the restaurants down there. It's just to the east of that, about a block west of Metcalf on 79th Street. And that's where our district office is based. And then we have staff in DC and then staff here to answer your concerns and to help folks. And we've had some pretty interesting things. We were working with someone to get a constituent out of Libya the other day who had been sort of caught up in the actions going on in Libya. We help folks with passports. We help veterans receive benefits they deserve, but they're not getting. Social Security recipients, all sorts of things. And so if you need any constituent services, if you need help with the federal government, please call upon us so we can assist you with those sorts of things. As you all know, as part of the debate the last few weeks, we've been debating the debt ceiling. And I want to talk about that briefly, and then I want to talk about just a couple of those issues, and I want to get to your questions as quickly as possible. On the debt ceiling debate, I voted no on the bill last Monday. And part of the reason is we did not need to be in the situation we were in. Each month, revenue comes in that is significant enough to pay for many of the most immediate priorities that we have. At some point, the debt ceiling, because of the appropriations we've made, does have to be raised, but it didn't have to be done in the way we did it. It didn't have to be done without solving a long-term problem. If you go to a banker and you say you want to borrow money, they're going to ask if you have a plan to pay back that money. Well, I'm not going to loan you all this money unless you're going to figure out a way to pay it back, right? You have monthly payments, what are you going to do? Washington has no plan to pay back the money it's borrowing from future generations. And this is a bipartisan problem. Both parties, there is no plan in place to pay back this money. And so we have to if we're going to borrow money, we've got to put a plan in place to fix that. The proposal that ended up passing created a new committee. Some people are calling it the Super Congress. And what it ended up doing is creating a 12-person committee that is supposed to look at these issues and pass out legislation for Congress to consider. I'm one I've been in the legislature for a few years, now I'm in Congress. I've seen before when we send something to a committee what that means. A lot of times that's an effort to punt on the problem or kick the can down the road. I think passing it on to another committee isn't going to change the dynamic we have in Congress. It's not going to change the issues that are before us. And so I think Congress ought to be there working to solve those problems. And I don't think we've got to pass this on. We've got to solve these problems today. So I didn't think that was the proper way to get there. Second challenge is, when you promise to cut spending 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years down the road, does anybody actually believe Congress will keep its promise? No. They just haven't. They don't have a very good track record. And so I was hoping that we do something like a balanced budget amendment or put in spending